Some political movements just kind of fade away. Others stick around. But it's pretty rare for one to be born in a single, chaotic 24-hour period that goes on to define a country's politics for, the next 75 years. Today, we're digging into one of those days.
Okay, so what's our guide for this story? We're diving into Alejandro Grimson's book, What is Peronism?, which really tries to get to the bottom of the most enduring and, let's be honest, puzzling political force in Argentina. And Grimson makes it clear, to understand any of it, you have to go right back to the very beginning.
So what is it really? Is it left-wing? Is it right-wing? Is it a political party? A labor movement? A cult of personality? Or just a vibe? The answer is pretty much, yeah. It's been all of those things at different times. It's a real puzzle, one that has mystified people for decades.
And Grimson's book argues that the key to unlocking that puzzle, to really grasping its contradictory soul, lies in the story of how it was born. A story that all goes down on the streets of Buenos Aires on one single, unforgettable day.
So let's set the scene. Before we dive into all the arguments and the myths, what do we actually know for sure happened that day?
Right, so the backstory is absolutely crucial here. You've got this guy, Colonel Juan Perón. He's the Secretary of Labor, and he's pushed through some huge wins for workers. We're talking paid vacations, better wages, stronger unions. This made him a hero to the working class, but a massive threat to his rivals in the military government. So they make their move. They force him out, and then they arrest him. They figured, hey, problem solved. But they were so wrong. And this timeline shows just how quickly things went from 0 to 100. In the morning, it's mostly confusion. By midday, something absolutely historic is underway. I mean, huge columns of workers, totally on their own, just start walking for miles, from the factory towns into the city center. By afternoon, the main square is just a sea of people, all chanting one name. And by 11 o'clock that night, the government completely caves. Perón walks out onto that famous balcony, a free man, and now the undeniable leader of a brand new political force.
So those are the facts, the stuff everyone agrees on. But this is where the mystery and the myth really gets going, because nobody, and I mean nobody, could agree on exactly how it all happened.
I mean, were these people being manipulated? Or was this a genuine, straight-from-the-heart uprising? Who were these thousands and thousands of workers, and what on earth drove them to shut down an entire city for a man they'd frankly only known for a short time? And this basically lays out the two completely different stories that came out of that day. The first version is that this was just a pure, spontaneous explosion of loyalty from the descamisados, the so-called shirtless ones. They heard their guy was in jail, they dropped their tools, and they just marched. But the other theory says no, this was a masterclass in political maneuvering that the powerful CGT labor union called a general strike and used its vast networks to get everyone out there, a totally calculated move to show their strength. But here's the thing. To really understand what was going on, you can't just look at the marchers. You have to look at the people who were watching the whole thing from their balconies in absolute horror. This quote, wow, it tells you everything. Human sediment. Think about that phrase. To the middle and upper classes of Buenos Aires, the working class wasn't just another group of people. They were this unrecognized, almost geological layer that had just been dredged up. There was shock, sure, but also this profound sense that they had no idea who these people were. And the media at the time just amplified that fear. Look at the language here. It wasn't a protest, it was an invasion. These weren't citizens exercising their rights, they were the unruly. This framing immediately painted the whole thing not as a political demonstration, but as some kind of threat to civilization itself. And here's another example. The opposition just couldn't, or maybe wouldn't, see this as a genuine political expression. It had to be a conspiracy, a plan to disrupt order. This narrative was a way to completely delegitimize the protesters and everything they were demanding. So, and this is the really crucial point, all that fear and disdain from the opposition, it didn't crush the movement. It did the exact opposite. It gave it its power. By calling them invaders, the unruly, the human sediment, they basically handed them a powerful identity. It drew a line in the sand. It's us versus them. And that dynamic would fuel Peronism for decades. Okay, so let's put all these pieces together. We've got the hard facts, we've got the two competing stories, and we've got the reaction from the establishment. So what does it all add up to? Let's circle back to our big mystery. After digging through all of this, which one was it? a spontaneous outpouring of popular support, or a well-oiled political machine flexing its muscle?
And the answer, as it so often is with history, is that it's just not that simple. The truth isn't one or the other. It was both.
See, what you realize is that October 17th wasn't one single thing. It was a whole bunch of things all happening at once. Were some union leaders organizing and directing people? Absolutely. But at the same time, were thousands of other workers just hearing a rumor and deciding to walk off the job on their own? Yes, that happened too. It was organized and it was spontaneous. It was strategic and it was emotional.
But out of that messy, complex, contradictory day, one single, undeniable truth emerged. A brand new political player had just stormed onto the main stage of Argentine history, the organized working class, and they were never leaving. And that's exactly why the day became more than just a date on a calendar. It became the origin story, the foundational myth of Peronism. In the end, it didn't really matter if it was spontaneous or organized. It became the symbol of the moment the people, the descamisados, realized their own power and changed the course of their country forever.
Which brings us right back to our original question. If Peronism was born from this messy collision of spontaneity and strategy, of raw emotion and cold calculation, is it really any wonder that for the next 75 years, it's remained one of the most powerful and one of the most contradictory political forces in the entire world?